Whispers from Below, a horror podcast by Justin W. Geis. Scary stories, both real and fake. Hello, listeners. Welcome to Season 3, Episode 7 of Whispers from Below, a podcast by a madman for madmen. I'm your resident psychopath, Justin W. Geis, and today's topic of discussion is Elizabeth Smart. Now, before I get into the episode, I'm going to do my usual little talking points, but something really new. I have a very exciting announcement that I'm going to wait till the end of the episode for. Those of you who aren't interested in this episode, or I tell you maybe this isn't going to be the episode for you based on some trigger warning stuff, if you still want to know what the exciting announcement is, skip ahead to the end of the episode and you can listen to it. It's pretty cool, and it's very exciting, and I can't wait to share it with you. But first things first, today's episode does have talks of sexual assault, a little bit of abuse between partners, and some child abuse. It's not a very pleasant story. There's also a lot of religious stuff in it. So if you're not super comfortable with anything like that, I will see you next week. Next week, I'm thinking of doing a much lighter episode. So, yeah, this might not be great for younger audience members. This might also not be great for people that are triggered by any of those topics. And I totally understand. I try to do different topics every week to make sure that if this week's topic isn't for you, you should have something next week. So without further ado, let's get into the episode. So the story of Elizabeth Smart is another kidnapping story. I know I've done a couple like this before, but this one is about a young girl again. She was kidnapped at age 14 on June 5th, 2002. So, I mean, what is that, 18 years ago? That's not really that long ago for a story like this to be so popular. She was kidnapped by a man named Brian David Mitchell and his wife, Wanda Elaine Barzee. And I'm gonna give, I'm gonna give a little bit of a background on both of the kidnappers, and then I'm gonna give a little bit of a background on Elizabeth before we talk about the actual crime, because I think that the background will it gives you a little bit more info into what's going on as far as the actual kidnapping happened. I don't always do this with stories like this, because sometimes people just snap, or their background isn't as interesting, but I go pretty in depth with these two because they're a little troubled, mostly with Mitchell. Brian David Mitchell was born on October 18th, 1953, in Salt Lake City, Utah. He was the third of 6 children in a Mormon family. His father taught Mitchell about sex by showing his young son explicit pictures from a medical journal. And reportedly, he taught him independence by driving him out to unfamiliar places in Salt Lake and leaving him there to find his way home, hopefully. So, that's not super great parenting. I'm not a parent. But that just seems like poor choices. You know? I don't know if that's really the best way to go about that sort of thing. Just all around bad. Personally, and many people would disagree with me, but my personal belief is that you shouldn't force a religion on any child. And if they want to believe in something, they'll find it later. If they choose to believe in something, they'll find it as they progress. Encourage your children to, go to different kinds of churches and learn about different religions. Obviously, be educated. But, forcing them into, Mormonism, if they're not fully in belief of that system, can lead to a lot of problems. And then also to, just leave your child out in the middle of nowhere when they're 12 or 13 and be like, find your way home. This is how I'll show you to be independent. That's not a great way to do that either. I don't know. Seems like kind of a poor choice. Speaking of poor choices, at age 16, Mitchell exposed himself to a young child, landing him in juvie for a little bit of time. Super good stuff on his part. At age 19, he married a 16-year-old named Karen Miner, and they ended up having 2 kids. I just realized her name is Minor, and she literally was a minor when they got married, so haha, very funny. They ended up having 2 children, and then Karen got both of the children when they ended up getting divorced. He then took the two children and like escaped to New Hampshire for like 2 years, where he joined a Hare Krishna group. And he eventually left them and came back to Salt Lake City. And he ended up struggling a lot with drug and alcohol abuse in his adult life. And when he came back to Salt Lake City, his brother um, helped him try to seek sobriety, which, you know, very chill cause. Very nice, very kind. And if he would have actually reached sobriety, probably a good thing. When he got back to Salt Lake, he ended up remarrying a woman named Debbie Mitchell. They had two more children, and she already had three children from a previous marriage. They got divorced in 1984 after he was reportedly abusing her and her children. Debbie had claimed that he had sexually abused their 3-year-old son, though it was never medically confirmed, and one of the daughters would later claim that Mitchell sexually abused her for about 4 years. Not a super great look for you, Mitchell. Exposed yourself to a child, then got married and got divorced very quickly, then got married and then got divorced very quickly because you were supposedly abusing your wife and your children. Not a cute look. What I will say is that part of the problem is that none of them came forward soon enough. If there's not enough evidence, obviously, like, a claim is a claim, and that's extremely important. If there's not a ton of evidence, there's not a whole lot that the police can do. I mean, even with evidence, there's not a whole lot the police can do sometimes, depending on the person. So I feel like if there could have been more medical evidence, they could have locked him away sooner, and we could have avoided a lot of what happened with Elizabeth Smart. But unfortunately, they just didn't come forward, and I believe the daughter didn't come forward about her sexual abuse until maybe during his trial of his kidnapping. So I don't know. It depends, and a lot of that stuff gets pushed away because back in that time period, no one was as vocal about things like this. It really wasn't a thing that was super vocalized until I would say maybe early 2000s to like late 2010s. I mean, even then, like, it's still something that we struggle with today, like believing people that talk about things like this. So I don't know, just something interesting to consider that maybe if they would have come forward sooner, if they had been comfortable doing that, we would have avoided all the stuff with Elizabeth Smart. But we didn't. And going back to history, on the day that his divorce with Debbie was finalized, he married a woman named Wanda Elaine Barzee. She was born on November 6th, 1945, in Salt Lake City, Utah. At the time of them getting married, she was a 40-year-old divorcee, and her children had reported her being extremely abusive, and even feeding them rabbit food for dinner sometimes. Not just like once, like multiple times. She would just be like, "This is dinner," and it was just like a pile of rabbit food. So that's super cool. So they're both kind of messed up, both divorced, both kind of seeking something more. Both have a lot of issues with abuse of children, and so they magically found each other. Match made in whatever you believe in, but I'm gonna say pretty tight match made in heaven, if you ask me. Um, Mitchell and Barzee were heavily involved in the LDS Church, which is the Church of Latter-day Saints, which I believe is a sect of Mormonism. Correct me on that if I'm wrong. But so they're both a huge part of the LDS Church, and this started to create issues because then Mitchell began to go by Emmanuel David Isaiah, and he started to claim that he was a prophet of God. Now, as those of you know, if you are involved in the church at all, I'm not, but I even know this information. If you start to claim that you're a prophet of God, your ass is getting kicked out of the church. So, Emmanuel David Isaiah, otherwise known as Brian David Mitchell, was very quickly excommunicated from the church along with his wife. I wrote excommunicated naturally, like duh. He started to dress like Jesus. So he was wearing robes, sandals. He ended up even growing out a beard and making his hair longer. He already had brunette hair. So in the very whitewashed depiction of Jesus, for those of you that are unaware, I don't know how you would be, but He is like a white man with like a brown beard and long hair, wearing like robes and stuff. Obviously, we know nowadays that like that's not what Jesus would have looked like because that doesn't make any sense for him to be white. Fight me on that. Historically, it's not accurate. You have no grounds to say that he was white. Um, but he was sort of going off of that vibe. And so he started to try to make himself look like that. And Wanda believed him. Wanda was fully a part of it. She was fully enveloped in this belief that he was a prophet. So she ended up changing her name to Hephzibah. I'm gonna spell it so that you know why I paused. Hephzibah. Hephzibah, something like that. And they ended up panhandling and preaching their own version of the Bible in downtown Salt Lake City. Super cool stuff. So that's like a basic background on the two of them. As you can see, they're both really messed up people. And they both have a lot of issues that are going on. There's not a whole lot of info on Wanda that I could find, at least, besides the fact that like she kind of just got wrapped up in his shit and she had a little bit of a problem abusing her own children. Whether that was lack of maternal instinct or more of a different psychosis of some sort of trauma that led to her abuse. I'm not entirely sure. I genuinely couldn't find a lot of information on her. But that's pretty much all the background I have on the two of them. So now a little bit of background about Smart. This is a lot shorter because a lot of who she is now, because she was so young when this happened, a lot of who she is now and what she does kind of developed from the kidnapping, as weird as that sounds. Elizabeth Smart was born on November 3rd, 1987. Another thing that I thought was kind of interesting, just as a side note, is that all three of them were born within like a month of each other. Not like in year, but like in like month, like date. Like he was born on, October 18th. Wanda was born, I think, on November 6th. And then Smart was born November 3rd. So we're all kind of born in like the same fall time period. I just thought that was like a weird little tidbit of information to know. Obviously, they weren't born like the same year within a month of each other because Elizabeth is a child and they are grown ass people doing grown ass people things to this child. But I don't know, just thought it was interesting. She was also born in Salt Lake City, and her family was also a part of the LDS Church. She has 4 brothers and 1 sister, and she is the second oldest in the family. Smart was a very intelligent and artistic child. She went to middle school, high school, and then ended up getting a degree in, I think, fine arts or something like that. Like playing the harp is like what she did to get her degree. Like she's like a very smart and educated girl, has a bright future, all that good happy stuff that you normally see in tragic cases like this. I don't know about you, but I personally hate having to go to the grocery store. It takes up so much of my day when I could be starting a new hobby with that time, like soap carving, or collecting the sick bags out of airplanes. With Instacart, it makes grocery shopping fast and easy, all while allowing me to stay in my underwear. Instacart allows you to order all of the things you usually get from your local stores, delivered to your door in as fast as 1 hour. Not only that, but it will also give you smart suggestions for new items based off of your preferences, as well as highlight deals to help you save some money. The shoppers handpick perfect produce and make sure that your eggs get to you safely. You can get free delivery on your first order over $35 by following the link in the show notes. This also lets Instacart know that we sent you, and it helps support Whispers from Below. So if you hate grocery shopping as much as I do, try Instacart today and enjoy getting your groceries the easy way. On June 5th, 2002, Mitchell broke into the home of Elizabeth Smart by cutting a screen in the kitchen window and letting himself in. Elizabeth at the time was sharing a room with her younger sister, Mary Catherine Smart, who was at age 9, so a 9-year-old. A 14-year-old girl and a 9-year-old girl are sharing the same room because they're both girls, and everybody else in the house is a boy. Makes sense. I get that. Mitchell abducted Smart at knife point, and Mary had awoken but pretended to be asleep because she didn't know what to do. She at one point thought he had left and walked out into the hallway, only to see that he was still there outside the boys' room, almost got caught, snuck her way back into her bed, and laid there for a couple hours before waking her parents up, letting them know that Elizabeth had been kidnapped and she didn't know what to do. Poor little 9-year-old girl. She later reported that he had a gun, but we know that it was a knife. She gave the correct height and hair color for him. She said that Mitchell was polite, soft-spoken, and even calm in how he was going about his business. She never saw his face, though the police kept that a complete and total secret from the case. So publicly, they just said that she saw who it was. She didn't. But they didn't want him to know that. And she stated that she recognized his voice, but she wasn't super sure where she recognized. Like, she couldn't pinpoint a person. She couldn't pinpoint where she'd heard the voice before, but it was familiar. That's pretty much all they had to go off of. On June 6th, 2002, their mother and father went on TV to plead for their daughter's safe return. And then searches began with over 2,000 volunteers, countless different posters up with her picture on them. You could download them from websites and print them out. They were handing them out. They were placing them on every coffee shop, every billboard, everything they could possibly do. And this investigation of trying to find Elizabeth Smart and her captors, well, at the time they thought maybe captor, but we find out later it's obviously the couple. It actually led to a bunch of other at-large criminals being locked away because while they were investigating said person for, the kidnapping of Elizabeth Smart, they realized they're not kidnapping Elizabeth, but, like, they did rape a kid, so, like, you got to go back to jail. Or, like, they didn't kidnap Elizabeth Smart, but, like, they did break into somebody's house, so, like, go to jail. Like, they did a good job locking other people away, which I think is nice consolation prize. The family actually ended up creating a website about her abduction, and they did everything that they could to keep her name and face in the papers as frequently as possible so that people would know her, and if they ever saw her, they would be able to recognize her. The other reason, too, is to make sure that if the killer, wow, that really slipped out, huh? Elizabeth Smart is alive. No one dies here. The kidnapper should see the newspaper posting or see something on TV about her. He would start to feel guilt and see her as more of a person rather than a possession. They talk about it in Silence of the Lambs. Wonderful film. They talk about the same thing in Silence of the Lambs. She goes on TV and is like, my daughter, and she keeps saying her name, and she's like, my daughter is, wonderful, and she is this way, and she keeps using her name to sort of make her more of a person and less of an object. Smart tactics like that are pretty good. Unlucky for them, Smart was taken into an encampment in the woods. So, as much as it was a smart choice to keep her name and face in the paper for people to recognize her, there's no way that Emmanuel or Brian or whoever was going to see it because they live out in the middle of nowhere. She was taken out into the encampment into the woods, as I said earlier, and she met Wanda there, who washed her feet and asked her to put on this, like, robe-like garment, like, basically a robe with, like, a cord around the middle. She said no, and then Wanda said, if you don't put it on, I'm going to have Brian come in here and rip your pajamas off and put the robe on you himself. So Elizabeth was like, cool, I'll put on the robe myself then. So also keep in mind, she's 14. Like, she's very young for this sort of terrifying endeavor, She put on the robe, and then a ceremony took place. Sorry about that. Which, according to their, like, messed up religion, had married her to Mitchell. Then he raped her. And all the while he was claiming to be an angel and told her that he was a Davidic king who would, quote, emerge in 7 years, be stoned by a mob, lie dead in the streets for 3 days, and then rise up and kill the Antichrist, unquote. In the words of John Mulaney, we don't have time to unpack all of that. That's a lot to take in, and obviously results in a lot of disturbing mental states, and it leads him to do disturbing things because he believes it so genuinely. And the problem too is Wanda believes it, so she's helping him along, and nobody's telling him, hey, that's not right, and maybe you should go see somebody. Like, he's living in his own fantasy, and there's no one there to stop him, so he's going to continue to do what he's going to do. He also kept saying, both before, during, and after the rape, he kept saying that Smart was the first of many of his virgin brides that he would kidnap that would help him fight the Antichrist when he rose up. She was shackled to a tree with a metal cable, and the cable let her walk around a little bit, but it sort of kept her in the tent that she was in by the tree. He forced her to take on a new name, and she chose Esther from the Old Testament, though Mitchell ended up calling her Shir-Jashub. Shir-Jashub is the best guess I have. I will spell this to you. It is Shearjashub. Shir-Jashub, I'm pretty sure is how you say it. He called her that while also calling her Esther. This is something that happens a lot with kidnapping cases, is that they will change your name upon your kidnapping. What it does is it helps you remove your prior self and sort of accept the new life that you're given under a new identity. If you're younger, it can help you compartmentalize what's happening to you, because it's not happening to you, it's happening to Esther. It's not happening to Elizabeth, because you're different people, according to this kidnapper. So it's a tactic that's used by both a kidnapper and potentially a kidnappee to sort of help with the transition into their new life. Really dark, creepy stuff, huh? Accounts from Smart say that she was repeatedly raped, sometimes multiple times a day. She was forced to look at pornographic magazines. He would threaten to kill her pretty regularly, like pretty much every day. He forced her to drink alcohol and take illicit drugs to sort of lower her resistance levels when he would rape her. He would also starve her for, I'm saying he, but they both would do this. They would starve her for multiple days, and then they would end up feeding her garbage, like literally from a garbage can. Wanda facilitated and even helped in Elizabeth Smart's torture and captivity. And later in interviews, Elizabeth would refer to Wanda as the most evil woman that she had ever met in her life. In August of 2002, Mitchell had devised a plan to leave Salt Lake City with Barzee and Smart and go to Boston or New York City. He visited the public library with Smart and Wanda so that he could research where he was going to move to. Now, keep in mind that he had gone in public pretty regularly since Smart's kidnapping with Elizabeth, like in tow. He would conceal her face with head wrappings, robes, veils, scarves over the face, things like that. A pretty easy way to get somebody to not talk to you. Yes, you'll get noticed for what you're wearing, but then it's a religious thing, so they can't ask you to remove the head wrap or the scarf. They can't ask you to do anything that goes against your religion in this country. That's like not something that we like really allow. So they were able to sort of conceal her face without anybody thinking twice about it, really. Kind of a clever way to do it. They ended up visiting the public library so that he could do some research. And a patron at the library was a little suspect of them. Was it a little bit because of what they were wearing? Yes, they came out and said later that they were wearing some weird shit, so I looked at them. And then he noticed Smart's eyes, and he was like, those look familiar. It looks like that girl. I'm calling the police. So A detective arrived on the scene and questioned Mitchell. All the while, Wanda and Smart did not say a word. He asked them why they weren't speaking, and Mitchell stated that it was part of their religious purposes. He said, "Can they remove the headscarves?" He said, "It's part of our religion. We don't do that." He referred to Smart as his daughter, Augustine Marshall. And Smart later says, like in interviews, she's like, "I wish I would have done something. I was watching my hope walk out the door. Like I should have said something or done something, but I was so scared and so conditioned to believe them. Like I just didn't. I couldn't do it." Um, really sad. And that happens in a lot of kidnapping cases. They'll get to the point where they're like comfortable taking them out, and showing them off or letting them walk around the house freely, and the kidnappee won't leave because they know that, you know, supposedly they're conditioned to believe that like he loves them, or they start to love him, or they feel bad for him, or they end up being like, well, I can't leave because no one's going to want me and no one's even looking for me, or things like that. Especially when you get them at a young age, you can like groom them to really believe anything, and it's really heartbreaking and sad. And this is yet another case of someone sort of being groomed. Smart would later end up visiting grocery stores, restaurants, and even parties with the two of them, where she'd be photographed with Mitchell and went completely unnoticed. In September of 2002, the three relocated to San Diego, California, and they moved encampments pretty frequently while they were there, whereas in Salt Lake, they stayed pretty stable. Um, in February of 2003, Mitchell actually spent several days in jail for breaking into a church, and Wanda continued the torture of Smart in the encampment. Cutting back a little bit, in October of 2002, Mary had suddenly remembered that the voice belonged to a unemployed man that the family had hired. His name was Emmanuel, supposedly, what he told them, which we know to be Emmanuel David Isaiah, otherwise known as Brian David Mitchell. He'd raked some leaves in their yard and worked on the roof for like one day. The police were a little bit skeptical about like this sort of realization because of the amount of time that had passed since the incident, as well as the short amount of time that she had like heard him in the room, as well as like the short amount of time that she had met the man, because he only worked on their house for like one day. But the family, regardless, had a police sketch made of him that was released in February. And it was based on everyone in the family's account of what he looked like, not just one person. Relatives of Mitchell saw like the sketch go up, and they actually gave the family some contemporary photos of him to sort of hold on to and release. The sketch was shown on Larry King Live, as well as America's Most Wanted. On March 12th, 2003, Mitchell was seen with a woman and a young girl in Sandy, Utah by two separate couples. They recognized his picture from the sketch that they had seen on TV, and both of them reported to the police, who immediately went to check things out. Not really like them, but they did. Smart was recognized by officers during questioning, and they then arrested Mitchell and Wanda and saved Smart from captivity. So she wasn't in captivity for even a full year. That doesn't make anything that she went through any less jarring, but it is interesting to note a lot of the cases that go, super public and super popular about kidnappings are where they've been kidnapped for like 15 years and had like 8 children and are like now full grown adults. She was in captivity for maybe like 9 months, something like that, which granted, still awful. But not necessarily as wild as like, an Amanda Berry or a JC Dugard who were kidnapped for so much longer. It's just interesting to note that her story went so big and so wild because the family just went haywire with putting her face everywhere, wherever they could, Just interesting. Now we're going to get into a little bit of the case. Those of you that don't know, I don't talk a lot about the legal proceedings because it's all jargon, and I, number one, don't understand a whole lot of it. And number two, it's not as interesting to me as the crime itself or the after effects of the crime. So I don't really talk about it too much, but this case specifically has a little bit of interesting stuff. He saw multiple doctors that reported that he wasn't competent to stand trial, but this ended up getting overruled by the court, um, who found him competent in 2004. Then there were years of battles between no, he's not competent to stand trial. Yes, he is. No, he's not. He would have these outbursts made in trial, but then they'd be like, he's not competent. But then he would be fully competent when they were talking to him in the room and all this crazy stuff. The defense always tried to make like deals, and the deals were always rejected, and it was just crazy. But they ended up finally finding him guilty on December 11th of 2010, and they sentenced him to life in prison without parole. Part of the reason that they did this was because Wanda admitted to being guilty of the crimes that she committed and sort of like put the nail in the coffin for Mitchell. On top of that, a lot of things that led to him being found guilty was that he fled state lines. He left the state so that he couldn't necessarily be prosecuted because, as we all know, it's really hard to connect the dots when you leave the state. He also was active about concealing her face, making sure that she wasn't seen, that he changed her name. Like, he was competent enough to do all of these things, leading to, yes, he might be insane, but the insanity plea is not what we're taking because he was active in doing X amount of things, you know? So he got sentenced to life in prison without parole. Wanda was supposed to be in prison for 15 years, but her imprisonment was terminated in September of 2018. Smart ended up protesting this and talked a lot about how this isn't safe and she doesn't feel safe anymore. Why would you let this woman out? Because she actively participated in my torture, my captivity. She also like has manuscripts from Mitchell that she like keeps with her. So like, why would you let her out of prison? Crazy shit is happening in the world. Mitchell is still in prison today, and Wanda is out wandering around. Smart went on to write a book with excerpts from other people that have been kidnapped and released. She became a speaker about sexual predators, human trafficking, and the importance of proper sex education. She speaks a lot about how religion helped her survive and heal. She's been happily married since February 2012. She has 3 kids. And her information is found consistently in media today. Her story is both very tragic and very inspiring to see where she's come from all of that. And it's a wild story and it's awful what happened, but she really has grown from it and has made herself so much more than just the kidnapping, which I think is really great. A lot of the things she talks about is proper sex education because especially within religious sects and groups and things like that, sex education isn't talked about as properly as it should be. And she was saying that after she was raped, a lot of what she was taught was like, well, if you are not a virgin when, you marry a woman or whatever, she's like a chewed up piece of gum. Like, nobody's going to want to rechew it. So when she got raped, part of the reason why she didn't try to escape after that was like, well, no one's going to want me anyway because I'm a chewed up piece of gum now. And she's like, that's not true. People will still love you and you can recover from that. But I wasn't taught that as a kid. And I don't know why I wasn't taught that as a kid. Like, people need to know. And she still is, I believe, Mormon to this day because she says that religion helped her a lot with her surviving in captivity and also healing afterwards. And this is where I think religion is such a great thing and it can really help people. And it can make you a better person. I know lots of people that struggle with drug and alcohol abuse and then, they find religion and it helps them stay sober. Fuck yeah, that's wonderful. I also know a lot of people that use religion in order to hate other people or to cause trouble for other people, or they try to bring religion into government, which obviously is absurd and shouldn't be allowed. So it's just finding a balance of like using religion to help yourself versus thinking you need to help others with it. Does that make sense? But that's pretty much all the information I have today on Elizabeth Smart. So now let's get into some of the more exciting info I have for you guys today. My Patreon will be fully up and running on December 1st, so it'll go up about a day after this episode goes up. It should be up and running. It'll probably be up on the 30th, but I'm saying it's going up like December 1st to be like a you know, Christmassy New Year sort of vibe. Um, my Patreon is going to be going up, applause here. It's really great. I spent a lot of time figuring out what content you guys would want slash what things you guys would get from it and how I can connect with you guys more through it and things like that. Um, so the reason that I chose to launch it now, I started this podcast almost a year ago. It'll be a year ago in February. Um, and it's been such a cool journey to sort of see what you guys have reacted well to, what you haven't. You guys have stuck with me through a lot. 2020's been a fucking wild year, and I'm so happy that you guys have stuck with me through all of it and tuned in every week and listened to me rant about spooky and creepy shit. Most of what I post is very minimal editing. It's just my stream of consciousness and how I sort of speak, and you guys love it, and I love doing it. I really want to make more content, and I want this to grow into something bigger than what it is now. It's great where it's at. I would love it to be more than this. A really great way to help out would be subscribing to Patreon. My lowest tier is like $5 a month. I'm not asking for a lot of money. I know that right now money's tight for people, so if you don't think you can do it, maybe you have a friend that would love to just give $5 a month. Something like that. I'm going to give you a little bit more info about what the tiers do, and then I'll talk a little bit more about my goals with the Patreon for the coming year. So tier 1 is called the Witness tier. It is $5 per month. You accidentally waltz into the scene of a crime and watch a strange figure murder someone in the darkness. In this first tier, you will be mentioned on our website in a support page where everyone can see how much you support the show. So it's just $5 a month. You get a little mention on our support page that'll go up on the website. For those of you that don't know, the website is whispersfrombelow.com. And there will be a support page where I put all the names of everybody all the usernames of everybody that's supported on Patreon. So that'll be fun. Next, we have the first victim tier, which is $10 per month. In this tier, you have become the first victim for a fledgling killer, becoming an integral part of their story. In this tier, you get everything from the previous, as well as an exclusive patron-only sticker every 3 months. So, this tier is super cool. I'm going to be designing specific stickers that'll be sent to you every 3 months. They will be not available on the website. They will only be available through Patreon. And if you sign up for this tier every 3 months, you'll get a brand new sticker design. It'll be anything from maybe a reference I made in an episode that you guys liked or laughed about. It could be new merch that I'm not going to release for a while, and so I'm sending you like a very exclusive like first look at some designs that I'm making. It could be little designs from the actual Patreon page. I drew all of the art for all of it. I'm not like a very gifted artist, but I think they all look pretty cool, so there could be stickers with some of that on it. So keep an open mind, and you will be getting a sticker every 3 months. The third tier is the Murderer tier. This is $25 per month. You are starting out as a killer, finding your footing in this blood-filled world. In this tier, you get everything in the previous 2 tiers, as well as a bonus episode each month. So you will be getting a sticker every 3 months. You will get mentioned on our support page, and you will also have access to a bonus episode. So instead of getting 4 episodes per month, you will get a bonus 5th episode that is only for people that are subscribed to a $25 or above little patron tier. I'm excited to do those bonus episodes. Those are going to be a little bit more intimate, a little bit different. I might try out different kinds of ideas with those episodes, do something I haven't done in a while. I might even go revisit topics and be like, hey, I wanted to talk more about blank thing that I talked about earlier. I felt like it didn't get the love it deserved, or I feel like it didn't get the depth that it deserved. So those will be fun little episodes, only available from the Murderer tier and up. The 4th tier is the Serial Killer tier, which is $50 per month. You have finally found your stride, and your infamous reign of terror has just begun. In this tier, you receive everything from the previous tiers, in addition to getting a one-time patron-exclusive t-shirt that you cannot get anywhere else. You will also receive an invite to an exclusive Whispers from Below Discord chat, where you can talk with other murderous individuals like yourself. So this will be a one-time t-shirt that I will send to you. I already have the design mocked up. It's super cute and adorable. I love it a lot. And I will be sending that to you once you sign up for this tier. That is not done through Patreon. That's done through me, myself, and I. So once you have subscribed to that tier, I will reach out to you and get a little bit more of your info so that I can send you that awesome t-shirt. The Discord chat's going to be cool because I will also be in there. So you can just send ideas for future episodes, talk to other people about your favorite episodes, have conversations with people about dark topics that maybe you haven't been able to find people that are willing to talk about things like that. It's fun to sort of put like-minded people in a room and say, go. So that's kind of what this will be. And I think it'll be really cool to see what you guys come up with and talk about. The fifth and final tier currently is $100 per month, and it is the Legend tier. You are able to evade the police like none before, and your identity will never truly be known. You have joined the ranks of the Zodiac Killer and will live on in infamy. In this tier, you will receive all the benefits from the previous tiers, as well as a personalized Whispers from Below water bottle, and the power to vote on any future episodes. So, realistically, do I really think that people are going to sign up for $100 per month right now? No, absolutely not. Maybe one or two people. And if you do, it's super cool. You're going to get this personalized Whispers from Below water bottle. It can have your name on it. It can have a username on it, a gamer tag, pretty much anything you want. It'll be a specific design, and the personalized aspect of it will be that you get to add a name or something like that to it. The water bottle will actually be fulfilled outside of Patreon through Sticker Bar Boutique, which is my sister-in-law's personalized merchandise business. She's going to be doing them for me, and it's going to be pretty cool. We've talked about designs, we've talked about how to personalize it and all that. It's a really cool water bottle. Like, I kind of want one for myself. It's going to be really great. So that's going to be super cool. And then if you want anything else from her, you can always check out Sticker Bar Boutique. It's pretty awesome and wonderful. And then the power to vote on any future episodes through this sort of specific patron-only chat with people in this tier. What I can do is put up different things saying, hey, so this week I was thinking about doing anime or story, like anime or like fairy tale. You get to vote. And whatever you guys vote on this tier, I do that week. Maybe the next week I do something different, but you guys will get a lot of voting power in deciding the content that you want to see. A lot of that will go with the bonus episode. So for the bonus episode this month, what do you guys want to see, this or this? Or I'll even do like 4 options. You guys will get to vote and sort of decide on the content that you want to see. So overall, I'm really excited for this Patreon. And realistically, do I think that a ton of people are going to sign up for this? Maybe not. If you do, that's wonderful, but I don't know. I don't have a whole lot of listeners right now, but you guys have really shown me a lot of support this past year, and this has really helped me get through some dark times in my life. And I hope that it has done something similar for you guys, or given you just a little bit of joy. Even if you've only listened to one episode and then this one, or this is your first episode, thank you so much for supporting me. I really appreciate it. My goal right now is that by my 1-year mark in February, I'll have at least 20 to 25 people. Let's say 25 people that are subscribed to the Patreon. They've become patrons of a tier, whether it's the $5 tier or the $50 tier, it doesn't matter. Just any of those would be absolutely wonderful for me. So my goal right now is to get 25 people to sign up for a tier on the Patreon. The way that I can get this to happen is through you guys that are listening right now and have listened in the past. I really need you guys to just share this podcast as much as you can. I love doing it, and I want it to grow, and I want it to shift and morph. I have some great ideas for bonus episodes that might be video based. They might not even be like a podcast. They might be a video. And I want that content to be more readily available for people. So just share this podcast. If you have one friend that's into some dark shit, send this to them. If you have a friend that's kind of into stuff like this, but maybe not interested, Send them a lighter episode. See if they can get into more of the darker stuff through some of the lighter episodes that I have. Share this as much as you can, whether it's on social media, through word of mouth, anything like that. It's it's really one of the best ways for me to get more support is through you guys sharing. If each one of you tells one person to go listen to it and they do, that literally doubles the amount of people that I have listening the next week. So I would just really appreciate it as much as you guys can. Um, and yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say. I'm really excited about this new little launch. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, you can always reach me through the website, whispersfrombelow.com. Like I mentioned earlier, there's a contact page. Feel free to message me there. There's also merch, and you can download episodes through there. There's links to all sorts of places where you can stream it and good stuff like that. If you want to reach me in a different way, you can always go to my Instagram, which is Whispers from Below. No spaces, no underscores, no capitals, no nothing. And you can always DM me through there. My phone's pretty much on me at all times, and I'm pretty good about keeping up with people that message me there. I've done a couple of fan-made episodes in the past, and I've really enjoyed them because they're not topics I necessarily would have chosen. So I love hearing from you guys and your ideas for episodes. So please, please, please let me know what you want to see. If you're interested in my personal life at all, you can follow my personal Instagram, which is JUTIN_geese, like the animal. And I post pictures of me in makeup, my dog, my boyfriend. I just did a really cool photo shoot with my roommate, so I'm posting some stuff from that. That's pretty much it. Please share this podcast. If you'd like to, go check out the Patreon and support it in any way that you can. I love you guys so much. And remember, kidnapping is really dark and just a lot to research at any time. Elizabeth Smart is not made or defined by the kidnapping, but it is part of who she is. And I think that that is so beautiful. And we're in the middle of a pandemic. Be safe, stay home, wear a mask, wash your hands.